Hello everyone, and welcome back to another exciting journey into philosophy through literature. Today, we're diving into one of the most intriguing and surreal characters in modern literature, Billy Pilgrim from Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five. Now, if you've read this book, you'll know it's no ordinary war novel. Instead, it's a blend of sci-fi, anti-war commentary, and philosophical exploration that leaves us with some big, complex questions. Billy Pilgrim isn't just a protagonist, he's a vessel through which Vonnegut explores profound themes like fate, free will, trauma, and the limits of human agency. But let's unpack that step by step. So, let's dive into the world of Billy Pilgrim, and get ready to question reality as we know it. To understand the depth of Vonnegut's message, let's start by getting to know Billy Pilgrim. Billy is a World War II soldier who experiences some of the darkest events of the war, most notably the firebombing of Dresden. But Billy is different from your typical war hero. He's quiet, unassuming, even awkward, someone we might call a passive protagonist. Throughout Slaughterhouse-Five, he's more of an observer of life than a doer. He's often helplessly swept along by events, much like a feather caught in the wind. But there's more to Billy than just his physical journey. Billy has another layer. He believes he's become unstuck in time. He claims to travel between different points of his life, revisiting moments in no particular order. He doesn't experience life in a linear way, but rather as a series of disjointed snapshots. So we'll ask ourselves, is Billy just a broken man, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder? Or is he, in some sense, has he transcended time in a way that allows him to see life and death from a radically different perspective? One of the major philosophical questions that Billy embodies is the conflict between free will and determinism. Vonnegut introduces a species called the Tralfamadorians, aliens who view time as a single, unchanging dimension. Imagine time like a landscape where every moment, past, present, and future, exists simultaneously. These beings have no concept of free will. To them, everything that has happened is happening, and will happen is set in stone. Now, the Tralfamadorians tell Billy something fascinating. When something tragic happens, they simply say, "So it goes." This becomes Billy's mantra throughout the novel. So it goes after every death, every moment of suffering, every bleak occurrence. It's as if Billy's learned to accept that suffering is just a part of existence, unavoidable, eternal. He isn't indifferent to suffering, he just sees it as inevitable. This idea is directly tied to the philosophical concept of determinism. In a deterministic universe, every event is preordained by prior events. There's no room for free will because everything is bound by cause and effect. If you think about it, Vonnegut uses the Tralfamadorians to present an extreme form of determinism. If all time exists simultaneously, then every choice we make is just an illusion. Our paths are already written. Now, on the flip side, we have to consider Billy's time travel from a psychological perspective. He's gone through severe trauma, and it's possible that his experience of being unstuck in time is a symptom of PTSD. Those who suffer from PTSD often experience flashbacks, disorienting memories, and a blurred line between past and present. Billy's random jumps through time could be seen as a way to cope with his trauma, to distance himself from the horrors he's seen. And this ties back to an important question. Is Billy actually unstuck in time? Or is he experiencing a trauma response? In some ways, it doesn't really matter, because the effect on Billy's life is the same. He's distanced from reality, unable to fully live in the present. Vonnegut seems to suggest that Billy's philosophy of accepting everything as predetermined, his so-it-goes mentality, is, in part, a defense mechanism. By believing that everything is inevitable, he doesn't have to process his trauma. He doesn't have to grapple with the brutality he's witnessed. But is this truly acceptance, or is it just numbness? This is one of the novel's great ambiguities. Let's pause here to appreciate the emotional weight of that phrase, "so it goes." This refrain appears over 100 times in the novel, and each time it marks a moment of loss or suffering. For the reader, it becomes almost numbing, just as it's numbing for Billy. And yet, it's also hauntingly beautiful. It reminds us of the inevitability of suffering, and in a way, it mirrors existentialist ideas. Existential philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus argue that life is inherently meaningless, and it's up to us to give it meaning. Camus, especially, talks about the absurd condition of life, the idea that the human desire for meaning is met with an indifferent, silent universe. Billy's passive resignation, his "so it goes," can be seen as a response to this absurdity. He acknowledges life's tragedies but doesn't try to make sense of them. Instead, he accepts that they are beyond his control. Vonnegut doesn't just use Billy to explore philosophical ideas, he also uses him as a critique of war. War novels often portray heroic soldiers who overcome obstacles, but Billy isn't a hero in the traditional sense. He's a victim of war, someone who has been through unimaginable horror and emerged deeply scarred. One of the most impactful scenes in the novel is the firebombing of Dresden. Vonnegut himself witnessed this event, so it's clear he's speaking from a place of personal anguish. Billy's experience of Dresden's destruction isn't glorious or redemptive. It's traumatic, nightmarish, and utterly senseless. In many ways, Slaughterhouse-Five is an anti-war novel. Through Billy, Vonnegut is telling us that war isn't heroic, it's brutal, dehumanizing, and often absurd. So, where does that leave us? Is Billy Pilgrim a tragic figure, a victim of war and trauma? Or is he an existential hero, someone who has transcended the need for meaning in the face of absurdity? The answer might lie somewhere in between. Billy's journey, his acceptance of "so it goes," and his embrace of Tralfamadorian philosophy can be seen as a kind of existential liberation. Like Camus' myth of Sisyphus, Billy acknowledges that life is absurd and still goes on living. He may be passive, but his acceptance of life's randomness gives him a certain strength. He's not clinging to illusions or fighting against forces he can't control. Slaughterhouse-Five is a deeply moving book, and Billy Pilgrim is a character who sticks with you. Through him, Vonnegut explores themes of fate, free will, trauma, and the absurdity of life. Billy's journey is unsettling, surreal, and often heartbreaking, but it's also cathartic. He teaches us that we can't control everything. Some things simply are. Sometimes all we can do is say, "so it goes." In a world that often feels chaotic and out of control, Billy's acceptance might seem like wisdom. But Vonnegut leaves us with a haunting question: is acceptance enough? Or is it merely surrender? Maybe it's a bit of both. Either way, Billy Pilgrim reminds us that we, too, are unstuck in time, caught between past memories, present experiences, and future fears. And perhaps, like Billy, we can find a way to live with it, even if we can never truly make sense of it. Thank you for watching. If you found this deep dive into Billy's actions thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more philosophical explorations. See you next time.